Welcome back to CIA Declassified. The air is like a wet wool blanket smelling of damp earth, high-octane fuel, and the metallic tang of unspent ammunition. You are standing in a small clearing carved out of the primary jungle in Laos. It is 1962, and the map of Southeast Asia is bleeding. While the world's eyes are fixed on the conventional buildup in Saigon, a different kind of war is being engineered in the mist-covered peaks of the plain of Jars. You are part of a skeleton crew of civilian advisors, men in plaid shirts and sunglasses who don't exist on any official military roster. You are witnessing the birth of a shadow state. Imagine a dirt runway, an alternate site, clinging to a ridgeline. A silver C-46 with no tail markings drops out of the clouds, delivering rice, silver bars, and crates of Swedish K submachine guns. This is the JOC coordination in its rawest form. You aren't just fighting a conflict, you are managing a massive, decentralized paramilitary machine that answers not to a general, but to a station chief. The atmosphere is one of frantic improvisation where the rules of engagement are written in the dirt with a stick. You can feel the vibration of a kick-started generator rattling the floorboards of your bamboo shack as the sun dips below the mountains. The black box radio on your desk begins to hiss with encrypted burst, coordinates for a drop that hasn't been authorized by any embassy. You are the one who checks the wind speeds and clicks the signal light to guide a ghost plane through a mountain pass that isn't supposed to be navigable. The humidity sticks your shirt to your back, but you barely notice because you are in the final link in a chain of command that stretches all the way back to a darkened room in Virginia. In the morning, you find yourself standing amidst a sea of Hmong soldiers, their faces etched with the fatigue of a generation born into combat. You are handing out plastic-wrapped blocks of hard rice and watching as a tribal scout points to a jungle grid map you've marked with red grease pencil. There's a strange, heavy silence that comes just before the sky opens up with the monsoon rain, and in that silence you realize that you are part of an experiment in total deniability. You aren't just a witness. You are the mechanical hand that turns the gears of a war that history is currently pretending isn't happening. You are the operator now. You feel the grit of the red clay under your fingernails as you sit in a darkened bunker at Long Ti Ung. You are looking at a jungle grid, a map divided into kill zones and drop zones that conventional forces aren't allowed to enter. You pick up the handset. In the distance, you hear the thunder of an Air America strike. You aren't just a soldier, you are a facilitator of proxy uprising. Every decision you make, which village gets supplies, which ridge line gets defended, is a thread in the JOC tapestry. You go to sleep on a canvas cot knowing that the hidden hand you represent is physically redrawing the borders of the Cold War while the rest of the world remains oblivious. Why JOC? The cryptonym is a product of the CIA's internal filing system for the Southeast Asia theater during the peak of the Second Indochina War. Research indicates that the JO diagraph was the geographic designator for operations specifically involving Laos and the surrounding paramilitary border regions. The suffix C/K refers to coordination/kinetic, signifying the high-level authority to bridge the gap between intelligence gathering and active, lethal paramilitary strikes. It was the specific administrative joint that connected the CIA's Directorate of Plans with local indigenous forces and deniable air assets. To understand how the CIA managed to run a private war with a budget that rivaled small nations, we must look at the cold, hard logistics of the JOC coordination. JOC was the primary mechanism for coordinating the Hmong secret army under General Vong Pao. It utilized Air America, a CIA-owned airline, for all paramilitary logistics. The program established over 400 Lima sites, landing strips, throughout the mountains of Laos. JOC coordinated teams were responsible for rescuing hundreds of downed U.S. Air Force pilots behind enemy lines. The coordination utilized the inbox radio system for secure communication between ethnic militias and U.S. advisors. It bypassed the 1962 Geneva Accords by keeping military advisors in civilian clothing. The program funded the construction of the secret city of Long Ti Ung, at one point the second largest city in Laos. JOC teams pioneered the use of forward air controllers on the ground to guide in massive bombing runs. The coordination utilized hard rice as a code name for the delivery of weapons and ammunition. It recruited former Green Berets who were sheep-dipped, resigned their commissions to work for the CIA. JOC managed the Hmong intelligence network that tracked the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The program utilized silver bars as the primary currency to pay local tribes for tactical information. It pioneered the Sky Raider close air support tactics that are still studied in military academies. JOC was the first to use sensor-to-shooter links where tribal scouts would place seismic sensors to detect truck movements. The program operated under the oversight of the 40 Committee in Washington. It utilized Project 404 as a cover for military personnel working within the JOC framework. JOC teams were the first to utilize the Stoner 63 weapons system in combat. The coordination utilized STOL, short takeoff and landing, aircraft like the Pilatus Porter. It established a massive surveillance net on the Mekong River to intercept contraband. JOC advisors were often the only Americans within a 100-mile radius of their operational zones. The program utilized black flights, nighttime drops, to move high-value assets across the border into Vietnam. It managed the road watch teams that provided the primary intelligence for the Rolling Thunder bombing campaign. JOC utilized the Raven forward air controllers who flew unmarked Cessna 01s in their pajamas. The program funded local hospitals and schools to maintain hearts and minds in the Plain of Jars. JOC officially terminated following the 1973 Paris Peace Accords. The program utilized dead drops in urban centers like the Vientiane to pass money to informants. JOC coordinated with the Thai Border Patrol Police for cross-border deniable raids. The secret army at its peak consisted of over 30,000 highly trained hill tribe soldiers. JOC coordinated airstrikes often utilized nail rockets to mark targets for heavy bombers. The coordination influenced the structure of the modern CIA Special Activities Center. JOC used leaping lemur beacons to guide night supply drops onto mountain ridges. The program utilized plastic boats with silent outboard motors for nocturnal Mekong patrols. It deployed microtransmitters disguised as animal droppings to track troop movements. JOC advisors used Swedish K submachine guns because they were untraceable to U.S. military supply chains. The program used exploding coal to sabotage North Vietnamese locomotives. JOC coordinated the first successful HALO, high altitude, low opening, combat jump in history. It utilized Project Popeye to extend the monsoon season through cloud seeding. The coordination ran a ghost radio station that broadcasted demoralizing fake news to enemy troops. JOC teams often lived in sky caves, elaborate limestone tunnel systems with air-conditioned command rooms. The program utilized hollow trees as temporary dead drops for seismic sensor data. It deployed invisible ink maps that only revealed drop zones when exposed to heat. JOC coordinated the use of lazy dog kinetic projectiles, solid steel dropped by the thousands. The program used bird calls as a complex phonetic code for Hmong radio operators. It established a secret airline repair facility in Tak Lee, Thailand. JOC advisors were issued L-pills, cyanide, to avoid capture by the secret police. The program used instant bridges, inflatable spans, to move Hmong artillery across mountain gorges. It utilized solar-powered radios decades before they became a commercial standard. JOC teams mapped the entire Bolavin Plateau, Bolaven, using infrared cameras. The program used smell-detecting sensors, people sniffers, to find enemy camps in the brush. JOC recruited former Japanese soldiers who had stayed in the jungle after World War II. It utilized one-way mirrors and village meeting huts to identify communist sympathizers. The program used counterfeit currency to destabilize the North Vietnamese economy. JOC advisors were trained in phonetic stealth, learning to speak Hmong with local mountain accents. The program used magnetic spikes to disable North Vietnamese truck convoys. It influenced the plot of several Cold War spy novels written by former officers. Here's a quote from a declassified internal CIA briefing. "We are running the most efficient, most cost-effective, and most secret war in the history of the United States." A quote from a former station chief, but it doesn't say which one. "In Laos, the JOC framework allowed us to act as the architect of a nation's defense without ever admitting we were in the room." Quote from a declassified intelligence assessment of paramilitary assets. "The Hmong are not just our proxies, they are the shield that prevents the dominoes from falling." Quote from a declassified operational field manual. "Denial is not just a policy, it is the tactical air we breathe in the JO theater." Quote from a declassified internal CIA evaluation. "Success here requires a man who can lead a tribe in the morning and write a budget for Langley at night." Quote that's a declassified memo to the Director of Central Intelligence. "Every Lima site is a testament to the fact that we can project power anywhere there is a flat piece of dirt." And a quote from a retired CIA paramilitary officer whose name is redacted. "JOC coordination ensures that the military does the fighting, but the agency does the thinking." End quote. When the history of the secret war was partially declassified, the most glaring holes were found in the specialized interdiction protocols section of the JOC archives. There are approximately 340 pages of total redactions there. These are filed under Exemption B1 for national defense and Exemption B6, which protects personnel and medical files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. I suspect these missing pages describe the program of targeted neutralization, where JOC teams were used to identify and eliminate high-ranking North Vietnamese officials traveling through neutral territory. Furthermore, the redactions likely cover the use of chemical defoliants and weather modification experiments, attempts to make it rain to wash out the Ho Chi Minh Trail that remained highly controversial and legally sensitive even today. In a war that didn't exist, the rumors become the only history people believe. There's quite a few conspiracies here, one of which is the Golden Triangle opium theory that we've covered before. Basically, it's persistent and it suggests that JOC wasn't just coordinating rice and guns, but was actively facilitating the opium trade to fund the Hmong army. Then there's the Cave of the Ancients theory. It's a fringe one that suggests that JOC teams discovered a massive cache of ancient artifacts, or even pre-human technology, in the limestone caves of Laos, and that the secret war was a cover to secure and excavate the site before the Soviets could find it. There's the stay behind ghost theory. Some believe that when JOC was terminated, a small ghost unit of Americans remained in the jungle, living with the tribes for decades to act as a permanent dormant tripwire for any future communist expansion, with some claiming they are still there today. Then there's the mind control field test theory. It's a dark one that posits that JOC provided a remote environment for testing psychological conditioning on local populations to ensure total loyalty under duress. And there is the satellite relay conspiracy theory. Some conspiracy enthusiasts believe that Lima sites weren't just for planes, but were actually ground-based relays for a secret satellite network that the U.S. used to monitor Chinese nuclear tests. Was JOC a success? Tactically, it was a masterpiece of economy of force. A handful of CIA officers and a few hundred pilots successfully tied down tens of thousands of North Vietnamese regulars for over a decade. The tactical success was found in the Lima site strategy, using small mobile air bases to project power into deep denied territory. It proved that indigenous forces, when properly coordinated with modern air power, can defeat a numerically superior conventional army. This localized tactical dominance forced the North Vietnamese to divert entire divisions to guard their supply lines, effectively acting as a force multiplier that saved thousands of American lives in the Southern Theater. The tactical success also resided in the phonetic fire control systems, where Hmong scouts, often illiterate, could direct complex airstrikes with 100% accuracy using simple geometric grids. This breakthrough bypassed the need for years of technical training, turning a local woodsman into a lethal component of a high-tech war machine. By the mid-1960s, the tactical coordination of JOC had turned the rugged topography of Laos from a liability into a fortress demonstrating that low-tech ground force can achieve parity with a high-tech adversary through superior intelligence and coordination. Strategically, it was a heartbreaking failure. When the U.S. withdrew, the Hmong were left to face the consequences of their loyalty alone. JOC achieved its goal of delaying the inevitable, but it did so at the cost of an entire culture. The lasting legacy is a cautionary tale of proxy abandonment, providing that while you can build a shadow army, you cannot always sustain the political will to save it. The strategic success of holding the line in Laos was ultimately rendered moot by the geopolitical collapse of the region, leaving the JOC framework as a brilliant bridge to nowhere. The strategic reliance on deniability meant that the lessons of the war could not be openly shared with the wider military establishment for decades. This created a knowledge silo where the brilliance of the JOC coordination was lost to the very people who needed it most in later conflicts. Strategically, the program proved that you can win 1,000 battles in the shadows and still lose the war in the sunlight of public opinion and international treaties. It remains the ultimate example of how tactical perfection can be undermined by strategic isolation. As far as operational and technological breakthroughs go, it led to quite a few, such as air logistics, which were perfected through the Lima Site program. Today, this technology is used in disaster relief and humanitarian aid. This specialized flight capability allows cargo planes to land on soccer fields and remote roads when traditional runways are destroyed. Indigenous proxy integration was the psychological core of JOC. Today, this is the foundational doctrine of the U.S. Army Special Forces. This breakthrough ensures that modern Green Berets focus on acting as teachers and partners rather than just warriors. Forward air control architecture was refined in the cockpits of the Raven pilots. Today, this has evolved into drone warfare and JTAC protocols. This precise communication link allows a single ground operator to designate a target for a missile fired from a drone thousands of feet in the air. And deniable logistics and front aviation. This was pioneered by Air America. Today, it's used in global supply chain resilience. These shell logistics operations allow for the movement of sensitive technology through hostile territory without revealing the state sponsor. We stand today looking at a jungle grid that has long since been reclaimed by the vines, but the coordination that defined it has never been more relevant. JOC was the moment the CIA realized it could act as a global architect, building armies from the clay and directing them with the precision of a symphony conductor. It was a war fought with rice and silver as much as it was fought with lead and fire, a conflict where the hidden hand proved that you don't need a formal declaration to change the course of history. The operational reality of the secret war has settled into the very DNA of modern geopolitics. We no longer just fight wars, we coordinate them through proxies and digital links. This project proved that for the state, the most effective force is the one that doesn't officially exist. Every time we see a local militia standing up to a tyrant with foreign training, we are seeing the ghost of JOC. The jungle grid taught us that the map is never the territory. It is just the canvas upon which the agency paints its strategic intent. The enduring lesson of JOC is that the most powerful weapon in any theater is the relationship between the advisor and the local. It proved that a few dedicated individuals backed by a ghost logistics network can hold back a tide that thousands of conventional troops could not. This legacy of shadow coordination ensures that the lessons of the Mekong are never forgotten, and that in the quiet corners of the world, the hidden hand is always ready to redraft the grid. We must recognize that the JOC cryptonym represents the ultimate marriage of administrative bureaucracy and visceral frontline combat. It turned the chaos of the jungle into a structured, manageable data set where a mountain ridge in Laos could be treated with the same cold logic as a bank account in Switzerland. This transition from raw warfare to high-level coordination is the definitive characteristic of the modern security state, proving that the person with the radio is often more powerful than the person with the rifle. When the jungle speaks, make sure it's speaking your language. A pilot in a Hawaiian shirt is always more dangerous than a pilot in a flight suit. You can buy a man's loyalty with silver, but you earn his heart with rice. And remember, the most important sites are the ones that aren't on the map. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we'll be examining KU Nut, the targeted operations to recover lost or compromised technical assets. We'll look at the ghost retrievers who go into hostile territory to pull back the sensitive tech that was never supposed to be found, and the brutal reality of what happens when a secret weapon falls into the wrong hands. Join us next time for the retrieval protocol. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.